Give us a second. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. So we're streaming live today from YouTube as well as Instagram. So hello to everyone out there. This is in the background. We have Logan on Instagram and Mary on YouTube. So if you have questions or comments, they'll be answering those for you, as well as maybe providing some technical support if you're having some problems there. So I also have with us on the front end of the camera, Maga Gei, who's the data analyst that worked with us on our fee survey this year. So welcome, Maga. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation, Steph.
So exciting. Okay. Let's see. I need to switch over to our webinar. Good. All right. So in case you didn't recognize Maga in actually moving footage, here's a picture of her. So to begin with, because we're going live on both YouTube and Instagram, if you are on YouTube and you're having trouble writing into the comments, so Logan and Mary, if you can just write a quick hello in the comments so people can see where those are if they just logged on. And if you're having trouble on YouTube writing back, up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a photo of yourself. And if you click on that circular photo and click on my channel, and then that will prompt you to create a channel. Go ahead and do that, and you shouldn't have any more problems. So we'll also have a formal Q&A at the end of the webinar. Now, if you're having questions along the way, feel free to ask them, and we'll answer them towards the end of the webinar. So we'll have lots of guesses along the way, though, so data can be pretty dry and boring, and we're hoping we can spice it up by having some audience interaction. All right, really quickly before we jump into it, the background images, because we're all in the travel industry. So the background images that you're seeing right now are from a trip I took with the Adventure Travel Trade Association to Las Pozas. How do you say that, Mugs? Pozas, Mexico.
Perfect.
Thank you. So you can look it up. We'll put a link to the Wikipedia and the YouTube description, as well as posting it up in the comments. But this is the kind of the background behind it. There was this really famous, eccentric British poet that hired Salvador Dali, who's the crazy surrealist painter that cut off his ear, hired him to create this concrete structure jungle in the middle of the jungle in the middle of Mexico. It's over like 40 or 60 acres, and it's really remarkable. So the background pictures are from there, and you can check it out for some of your clients later on if you want. All right, so let's get started. The first thing we want to talk about is who took the survey. So we'll go into some of just the basic demographics that we ran across. So the number of respondents that we saw was our highest ever. This is our third year doing this. And if you want a reminder, if you weren't one of the 812 people that took our survey this year and you want to make sure your voice is heard next year, send an email to hello@hostagencyreviews.com and let us know you want to be signed up for reminders. So we'll send you out a reminder when we're doing the data collection. All right, so we have 812 respondents. What does that look like in terms of the gender demographics? So we saw 17% of the respondents were male and 83% were female. And for me personally, this is, Maga, you're not going to know this, but when we go to travel industry events, this is typically the demographic that I experience. Like I usually would say there's a lot more females than there are males. And if you're one of the viewers right now and have been to any industry events, let me know if this is the demographic that you're seeing, that about 20% of the people at travel industry events are male versus around 80% for female. I'd just be curious what your thoughts are. All right, now the median age, before we get into this, Maga, because we're in the travel industry and we may not be as sharp on our math or data lingo, can you run through what median is?
So because we had a lot of respondents who were younger than, and just a few ones who were older, an average would not represent very well the whole population that took this survey. So the median, to get the median, we order all of our respondents' age from smallest to largest value, and we take the value in the middle. And so that hopefully represents better.
Because they're all kind of clustered. The average is more clustered,
yeah,
is the idea? Okay. All right, so the median age of our agents was 53 years old. Now, the next question that comes up then is how experienced are these agents? They're 53 years old on average-ish. I shouldn't use the word average, though.
On median-ish.
on median-ish, they're 53 years old. Now, so the median years of experience that we saw was 5 years. But when Maga was running through the data with Bridget, what they found was that the median years isn't really representative of, it's representative of all of the agents that we had, but it's missing something key, and that's there's two separate populations within there. So this 5 years median-ish experience isn't super accurate. So what we want to do is we broke it down into two different agent subtypes. So let me go over the different agent subtypes. So hosted agents, as you've guessed, and that's probably what most of you are because a lot of our audience is hosted agents. But there are travel agents that are underneath a host agency and they're using a host agency's accreditation number. If you aren't sure what a host agency is, we'll go ahead and link in the comments and also in the description if you're listening to this recorded, a link to the article that explains what a host agency is. So now that we know what a hosted agent is, the other subtype we moved it into is called independent, which is misleading because of the landscape we're in, because hosted agents are typically independent contractors. Independent is an unfortunate word to use, but it's also, that's a term that's used a lot in the industry. So what we define that as for the purpose of our survey was that independent agents are agents that have their own accreditation number. And if you're not sure about the accreditation options that are out there, we have an article on travel agency accreditation numbers that we'll link to for you or put in the comments. Now, if you have an idea on a better term for independent, please feel free to share or write in the comments. We're open to ideas, and you might change the lingo of the industry. Who knows? All right. So now we've talked about how we had to break it in because our median years of experience was 5 years, and that didn't really work very well. So when we break it down from the whole demographic into hosted and independent agents, let's take a look at what the difference is. So with the hosted agents, we're really not seeing a decrease at all. It's 4 years of experience. But let's take a look at the independent agents because this is where we saw a real difference. And Maga, when you were teasing this data apart, were you surprised when you saw the difference in the years of experience?
I was. I have to say that there were a few respondents in both groups that had a lot of experience, but it was quite impressive, the difference between.
Yeah, so let us share with you our secret inside number. It's 13.5 years. So, oh, the slides aren't showing. Hold on, slides aren't showing. We've got a problem. Let's see. Oh, we just found out the slides aren't showing. Sorry, everyone. All right. So, are you able to see them? Okay. We're going to speed through these really quick. This is what we're all looking at that you should have been looking at. Who took the survey? There we go. The median age, we were talking about that. Years of experience. Hosted, independent agents. Okay, so this is where we were at. The median years of experience for independent agents is 13.5, which if we go back, it was 4 for hosted agents. So huge difference, which made it so we had to actually create 2 different reports. Previously, in the past 2 years that we've done it, we've just done a hosted agent report because there wasn't enough data. But now there was around 100.
That's right.
Yeah. 100 independent agents that filled it out, which gave us a data set we could work with. So the question then comes in, now that we know we've broken it into hosted and independent, let's talk about if experience matters, which is to say, as an agent gains more experience, are they going to charge a fee, or are they more likely to charge a fee? And the answer is yes, it increases. And Maga, was that across the board for hosted and independent agents?
Yes, that was the same for both groups.
And it was pretty much like the graphs were really similar. They both, had a similar slope.
Yeah, and they both start at the same point. So at the very beginning, in both groups, just a third of agents charge fees.
Yeah, which was super interesting to us because then it diverges a little bit, and the independent agents are more likely to charge fees, some type of a fee, and the hosted agents are a little bit less likely to charge some sort of a fee as they gain experience. But they both start at the exact same point, which is 30% of them would charge some type of a fee. So how many agents charge fees? All right, so when we're looking at hosted agents, this is 47%. This is on average, because what we were talking about before, Maga and I, was when we're talking about experience level. When you're just starting out, 30% will charge a fee. But if we're looking at the average of the hosted demographic of how many charge a fee, it's 47%. And then there's let's see. The other thing to mention is that if you want to look at the data from past years to compare the hosted agents that charge fees in 2018 to see if that's increasing, you can go to, we'll put a link in the description or the comments, but you can look at the 2017 and 2016 report to get some sort of an idea. So now this is interesting, and another reason that we are glad we broke it out between hosted and independent was the independent agents were way more likely to charge a fee. But then as their experience grows. So then when we were looking at this data, we ran into the same problem that we did earlier when we had to break it out into hosted and independent agents. So then we have to ask the question, does location matter? Because in our survey, we asked if agents were storefront or home-based. So Maga, when you were looking at hosted and independent agents, what did you find based on their location? It was pretty different, or?
Yes, there's a big difference for storefront agents.
Yes. Yeah. So let's recap. Here's the hosted agents. We have 47% of them charging a fee, but let's break that down into our home-based and storefront. So drops to 45%, which isn't really a huge drop statistically. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay. I know there is always, so one of the things that was exciting about bringing Maga on is I always will read surveys or polls and it'll be like a 3% margin of error, like different things in there. I have no idea what that means. And so I'm like, do we have a margin of error on our survey? Like, what's happening? And so Maga helped us out with things like that and making sure our data was up to snuff. All right, so 45% of home-based agents charge a fee. Compare that to storefront, which is what Maga was saying, that storefront way more likely to charge fees. So almost double, just under double. So independent, we saw that same trend. We saw in the beginning, all agents, whether they're storefront or home-based, 71% charge some type of a fee. Now, it drops, which was surprising to me, that when they're home-based, it drops to 59%. So that means if it was 71%, the storefront must be a really big number. Is that kind of?
Yeah, it's probably driving that 70%.
Yeah, so that the 71% maybe isn't super accurate because there's a big divergence between storefront and home-based.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this was the craziest thing we ran across. We've never had 100% of anyone charging fees, but the demographic that is 100%, according to our survey, likely to charge some type of a fee is the storefront independent agents, which is really, I mean, it's really great to see. And we don't know, so with our data, we can't really tell the story. We don't really know what's happening, but kind of what we're thinking happens and why it's 100% for independent storefront agents is, if you remember from in the beginning, we talked about how independent agents are more likely to have more experience, and they're also more likely to charge fees. And then we know from the other data that storefront agencies are more likely in general to charge fees. So all of that combines together to make this such a high number for this subset.
It was also very interesting that for the storefront agents, there's a bigger proportion of agents who charge for both consultation and service fees. But we'll get into those later.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk on that. Actually, I think we're going right into that. Hold on. I have my notes over here to tell when I need to switch slides, but the problem is I only talk for a few seconds on the slides, some slides, and I get like 10 pages behind. So, all right, so that does bring us to what types of fees are charged. Great segue, Maga. All right, so our first one, let's define it, because we did two types of fees that we kind of broke it down into. And the first is the service fee, and that's typically a flat fee. It's like a transactional fee. And the most common one that you'll see for agents, and this shouldn't surprise anyone, but is the air ticketing for domestic. And for those that are wondering, the mode, what's the mode, Maga?
The most popular number
so
that people charge.
Yeah, the most popular number was 25, and that's across independent, home-based, pretty much regardless of location.
Yeah.
I don't think we broke it down by age, did we? I don't think we
did. But probably would be the same.
Yeah. Everyone charged $25, it appears, for domestic. If you want a little bit more information on the types of service fees that people are charging, the transactions they're charging it for, as well as the mode and the ranges, which is the lowest to the highest amount that was reported on our survey, you can go to the article that has way more information for you and an infographic with lots of data. So we've got a message on YouTube from Diane. Fees come into play because storefronts have overhead to pay, whereas home-based agents don't have overhead. That's one of the things. Thanks for mentioning that. That is that's a hypothesis we have, that it's also because there's a lot more overhead when it comes to a storefront. So thanks for pointing that out, Diane. Let's see. So the percent that charge service fees, we're going to break it down into hosted and independent agents. And the same trend, we have 38% for hosted agents. And then when we look at independent agents, it almost doubles. So we see 85% of independent agents charged for service fees. Some thoughts we had on why independent is higher is the same thing with experience level. Also with an independent agent, you have your own accreditation number, which means you're probably more likely to be have the GDS system, and then you're probably more likely to be booking airline tickets. So that could be another reason. And if you're not sure what a GDS is, we can we'll put a link to an article on what a GDS is in the description or in the comments. All right, so the other type of fee we defined in our survey is consultation fees. So these are, there's a whole bunch of different ways to go about consultation fees and their structures. The most common one that we see is a flat fee. So 66% of agents for their consultation fee use a flat fee structure. And again, go to the article and you'll be able to see the mode, the most common flat fee, the actual amount that people are charging. And when we're looking at hosted agents, we have 24% of them. It's very similar to what we saw earlier with this service fees. So hosted agents had 24%, a little bit of a drop, but again, we see it almost doubling. Oops, wrong way. Almost doubling for independent agents.
If you're wondering, the most common flat fee rate that both hosted and independent agents charge is $75.
And that's for the flat fee consultation?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So it didn't change between the two of them. That's kind of cool. All right. So right now, I want to ask you as the audience what the number one reason is that you think agents don't charge fees. So up here, we have some options up on the screen. So go ahead and select which one you think it is. There's a lot of different options that came up. But you can see a lot of the options have to do with people being like a little bit unsure. There's the I don't want to group, which they just don't want to, and that's fine. But for the other ones, it seems like it's an issue of not being sure about how to charge it or not sure about their value. So while you're putting in your guesses in the comments, here's a few resources. We'll post them in the comments for you as well as in the description. But the first is we have an article about taking the plunge, a guide to charging fees. And that's a great one to read through to give you some statistics as well as some rah, you can do it. The other thing is to listen to our Travel Agent Chatter podcast. This last December, I spoke with Madeline Jawar, and she's the owner of Italy Beyond the Obvious. And it's a really inspirational podcast for those of you that are interested in charging fees, because she makes 80% of her income from just fees. It's really neat the way she has it structured, so make sure to take a listen to that. And then the last thing is, if you do decide to charge a service fee, there are service fee agreement templates. We have a sample, and we'll put a link to the article that has that. That'll be really helpful if you actually do start charging it. So let's see, from over on Instagram, we have from Checklist Travels, Florida does not allow a service charge. So that's correct, Checklist Travel. So what we're talking about there is that with Florida, if you are a hosted agent, and if I'm getting this wrong, what you're asking, Checklist Travel, I'm having a lot of trouble saying that. If I'm getting this wrong, feel free to write in. But if you're a hosted agent, underneath your host agency's accreditation number, their Florida Seller of Travel law does not allow you as their agent to charge service fees, unless there's a lot of things you have to do, I should say, like a list this long of legal things that you have to do if you're going to charge it. So it's easiest to say you're not supposed to charge service fees in Florida if you're hosted. All right, so let's see. Going down. So these were the numbers, and I think it's fair to say the top four are pretty close.
So here people were allowed to answer several of these answers in our survey.
Oh.
So
in case they're trying to be like, wait a second, this doesn't add up to 100. That's why. Thanks for bringing that up. All right, now, before we're going to move into the question and answer section in just a second, but before we do, it's not just host agency reviews that we push out the survey and we're able to analyze all the data, do all these neat things afterwards. But a big thank you to our partners on the left-hand side of the screen who have helped push out the survey and made it possible so that we were able to have a huge data set and able to have our independent agent data set this year, which is new. All right, so again, if you have any questions, and if you're on YouTube, here's the quick steps how to do it. Instagram should be pretty self-explanatory. And I'm not very good at Instagram, so I can't help you if you don't know where they are. I have no idea. All right. So while we're getting some questions in, here's some to-dos for you after you're done with this. So make sure if you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to our channel so you get all the updates when we post videos. And if you're on Instagram, go ahead and follow me if you're not already. And then you can go ahead, read the fee survey reports, and then sign up for future reminders. You can either follow that link that's on the slide, or you can email hello@Host Agency Reviews and just let us know. So for questions, let's see what we've got. All right. Why do independent agents have so much more experience than hosted agents? That's a really good question. So we never really know for sure, but our idea on why there's more independent agents with experience and they have longer tenures in the industry is because host agencies are a stepping stone in the industry, and some people will stay with their host agencies. They'll start with them and stay with them because they really love the partnership. But other people use it when they're brand new. So host agencies by far are the, I'm thinking gateway drug in my mind. They're the gateway drug to the industry.
The nursery.
Yeah, they're the nursery. That's much nicer than gateway drug. But they help bring people into the industry and get them deeper because it's really difficult to start out independent because you're learning, especially if you're new, you have to learn a whole new industry. You have to get your own accreditation. There's a lot more paperwork. You have to sign up with all the vendors. So it's much easier to go the route of a host agency first. And then if you decide to go on your own later on, people will usually do that within 3 to 5 years of joining a host. So see if we have any other questions. I know we had one from on Instagram. We were trying something. Logan had to help me because I can't figure out Instagram for the life of me other than taking a picture and posting it. But he was we posted something to ask people for questions about the webinar yesterday, and my brother wrote one in asking about this is my brother's. Can we expect extra fees for theropods, particularly on transatlantic flights to LATAM? So Nate, I'm not really sure about that. That's a great question. We also have another question on Instagram saying, how many fees should I expect to encounter as a brand new host agent? So I think what we're looking at there is not talking about the fees you're charging, but what kind of fees you expect from a host agency. And that's really going to vary. The types of fees that are most common are a startup fee. There's usually a monthly fee depending on what your commission splits. So you can expect the more commission you're giving a host agency, the less you'll be paying in a monthly fee. There might be some other fees from a host agency. You could see it from possibly E&O insurance. Sometimes that's included though. You might see it if you need GDS access. You might have to pay extra for that, or if you have sub-agents. But those are the main fees. Sometimes there's an annual fee too. But really the best thing to do is to look on our host agency list, look over all the details, and then you can call the host agencies or you can send them a message in our right from the site, and you can ask them what kind of fees they have. And we have a question from Diane, but don't host agencies have more buying power from suppliers than an independent? Yes, absolutely. That is one of the big reasons people go with a host agency. People have different reasons for breaking off to become an independent agent. Sometimes maybe they're just booking sandals vacations and they have enough volume that they can reach the top thing, or they've negotiated something on their own. So host agencies by far have more buying power than most independent agents that are just by themselves, by economies of scale. And then on YouTube, we have So if I choose a host agency that is from Florida, but I live in Washington State, can I still charge a service fee? Not unless you follow the particular rules that come with charging a service fee. So legally, no, you can't. That is not to say that people don't do it, because people still may do that. But what you should do is, on our site, if you have questions about charging a service fee and kind of the rules of Florida, because this is very legal and complicated, the best thing to do is we can post in the comments as well as in the description a link to our Seller of Travel, like a travel agency license, our Seller of Travel article. And that will break it down by state and tell you what the different laws are. And we link to some articles by Mark Pestronk, who's the travel attorney that writes for Travel Weekly. And he answers breaks it down into human speak so you can understand it. So Eugene is asking a great question. Are women better at this than men are? Well, I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about, but I'm guessing it's charging fees. So, Maga, do you remember the exact data on that? Because it flip-flops.
Right. I know in which directions. I don't have the numbers on the top of my head, but do you remember the direction? So for hosted agents, men were more likely to charge fees.
Mm-hmm.
But for independent agents, women are more likely to charge fees by a lot.
Yeah, we were really surprised because we wanted to break down the data by male and female to see if kind of some of the issues that you see in pay equity in the workplace, if that transferred over to service fees. In other words, are women perhaps less likely to charge fees due to like cultural constraints? And we saw it in one of them, but then it flipped on the other. So those are in the articles, though, if you take a look at the actual reports. Trendy Travels Agency just had a great suggestion. What about calling independent agents self-governed agents, since they essentially stand on their own? Just a thought. I like that. Thank you for the suggestion. We're trying to toy around with different ways of classifying them that's less confusing. So, oh yeah, good idea. Mary's telling me to turn off our slideshow so you can see us. Yay! All right, so there we are. Let's see. Do we have any more questions coming in? I think we have one more coming in. Do you have any examples of fee agreements on the site? Yes, exactly. So we do have, we actually have quite a few sample legal agreement type things on the site. So, and forms for your agency. So on the fee agreements, we'll post a link in the comments. I think we might have posted it earlier, but we'll post it in the comments or in the description. I can't remember what the name of it is. Do you remember, Mary?
It is how seller travel agreements impact service fees.
This is exciting. So brace yourself. You're going to be reading the article, How Seller of Travel Laws Impact Service Fees. Very, very good reading. Make sure to read that before bed tonight. But there is actually a great sample service fee agreement in there, so take a look. All right, I think we don't have any other questions. So thank you everyone for joining us. And if you come up with any other questions, you can always email us at hello@hostagencyreviews.com. Maga, thank you so much for all your help.
Sure. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, she did. She was like awesome with the data and really helped us bring it to a new level. So thank you.
More.
Oh, just kidding. There's more questions. But thank you. All right. I'm learning that most host agencies will require us to split the commission on fees. To me, this is unfair because my fee is my trip planning fee. How do most hosted agents handle this? Do they run it through PayPal or some other way to circumvent having to split that with the host agency?
Good question.
Yeah, great question, Diane. So the first thing to mention is, again, there's that seller of travel law to keep in mind. And that is, again, not to say that host agent or hosted agents always follow that, but do know that there are risks if you're running service fees on the side. But yes, there are plenty of hosted agents that do charge service fees on the side. In your contract, it may say that you need to charge them with your host agency. So I always check into that. But I have heard of agents that do charge it through PayPal. One thing you might run into is, because you're a travel agency, and especially if you have the word travel in your name, you can get flagged because travel is a very high-risk industry in credit card processing, and they do not like letting travel agencies run anything. So I'm not even a travel agency, but because I'm getting money from travel agencies from the site, I was cut off with credit card processors as too high risk. So another, I can't think of the name right now, but there's another credit card processor. When I think of it, I'll post it in the description of the video. But there's another credit card processor that focuses on the travel industry. I can't think of it right now, but I'll post it up there for you, and they're more likely to. So let's see, from Instagram, we have, for seller of travel laws, how does a trust account work? So the way a trust account works is essentially what the government is looking to do is they want to make sure. There's been host agencies that have collapsed in the past where they take a client's money for a trip but don't actually give it to the vendor. They keep the money, and then because an agent or a client isn't traveling for 5 months, people may not know that their trip. So you have 5 months of income coming in before everything starts to collapse. So the government is trying to avoid that with trust accounts, and the way they do that is anytime you're getting money, the way a travel agency pays a vendor right now is they take the client's credit card and they give it to the vendor. And so they're not even touching any money. Now, when it comes to fees, they might be processing some money and have it in their account. Or if a client pays via cash or via check, then the agency has to put that into the trust account and then pay the vendor with it. So that's kind of the idea behind there. Although, honestly, this is thinking out loud, but I'm not sure how the government can monitor the trust accounts, because that seems really weird. So it's a good idea in theory. I'm not sure how well it works in real life. All right, any other questions? Let's put our gloves on. If you missed us in the beginning or our promo videos, we had our T-Rex theme again. So as we sign off, we want to say goodbye. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.